Ο Στιβ Βρανάκης εργάστηκε σε πολλές διαφημιστικές εταιρείες ανά την Ιφίλιο προτού συμμετάσχει στη δημιουργία της VCCP London, μια εταιρεία που ανακηρύχθηκε διαφημιστική εταιρεία της χρονιάς από το περιοδικό Marketing με δουλειές που έφεραν την υπογραφή του, με μερικές από τις πιο επιτυχημένες και βραβευμένες καμπάνιες στα μέσα κοινωνικής δικτύωσης μέχρι σήμερα. Αφού εργάστηκε 8 χρόνια στα project κλειδιά της VCCP, προσελήφθη στο δημιουργικό εργαστήριο της Google στο Λονδίνο ως δημιουργικός διευθυντής για την Ευρώπη, τη Μέση Ανατολή και την Αφρική. Το ταλέντο του να παράγει διάσημες δουλειές που συζητιούνται του έδωσε 2 φορές τον τίτλο του νούμερο 1 ψηφιακού δημιουργικού στο Campaigns Book of Lists.
Έχουμε τη μεγάλη χαρά και τιμή να έχουμε μαζί μας τον κύριο Στιβ Βρανάκη, τον καλώ στο βήμα. Ο κύριος Βρανάκης.
I just wanted to start off by saying, well, μιλάω ελληνικά όμως, I think it's going to be easier to say what I want to say in English, but I want to start off by saying that I think this is awesome. I think the speakers so far have been truly inspirational to me, and I kind of think what I do is nothing compared to what you guys do. And I think the organizers are incredible for doing this, because I think a lot of people talk about, you know, they talk about we need to do this, we need to do that, and very few people actually sit down and they think up a concept like this, and they get everybody together and they do something about it. So I applaud you guys. Now I'm just going to tell you a bit about myself and about what I want to talk about, which is innovation out of a crisis. So, this is a bit about me, and I just want to set a bit of context, because you know, a lot of people talk about these people who left a long time ago, and I guess my parents are some of these people. So this is where I come from. I come from Sfakia in Crete. My grandfather first left a little tiny village called Kalikrati in Sfakia, and he jumped on a ship that I'm going to show you in a minute in 1906 to New York. Yeah, my parents ended up emigrating to Canada, where I grew up in the late 60s. This is the sign in my village in Fagocastelo, and it's interesting because it's a beautiful village. It's full of fiercely proud and independent people, but also people that use street signs as target practice. But they do have a love of the environment. They have a love of life, and they're incredibly proud people. This is the manifest that the ship in 1906 that my grandfather jumped on, and you can look at the bottom here, the last line, John Vernakis, 26, from Kalikrati, not being able to speak a word of English, and he arrives in New York with nobody. And I think that's pretty incredible. And that's me, and I think this is my first day of school, and only a Greek mother would send her kid to school like this. No, and you know, I think I was used as a punching bag that day in gym class. But not only did I get sent to school like that, but I had a lunchbox with a spanakopita in it and dolmades. So all these other kids are eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they're looking at me like I'm E.T. or something like that. So 2 things happened early on in my life, which kind of helped me realize that I could do something interesting. So I was one of those guys who would just draw all the time, random things. I draw on desks at school. I do all that sort of thing. And then I got a Mac, which I'm still paying off. But I got my first Mac in the early 90s, and it opened my eyes up to design and what you could do and how you could communicate things to people in a very, very compelling and engaging way. And then I also got online in the early 90s, and that as well showed me the possibility of being able to connect and communicate to the rest of the world. So these were key milestones in my life. But the number one thing that I continued to draw my inspiration from was being Greek. Because again, you know, I had one of those families where, you know, we'd be like hanging a lamb in the basement and then cooking it over Easter in the backyard, all that sort of stuff that we took, yeah, and that we found incredibly important, yeah, all these sorts of things. So being from Crete, we had a real sense of pride and respect, attention to detail, to a job well done, or don't do it at all, yeah. We love the environment, and we love life. Even growing up as a kid with very little money, my father always said, and he made sure that we understood how important it was to love and enjoy life. It was truly a special and precious thing. So this is what I do now, And what I do now is interesting because I did advertising for a long time. I did fashion and I did design, but now I'm in a group at Google called the Creative Lab, and it's all about innovation. Yeah, so it's all about actually trying to come up with these ideas that change the world. My brief, what they measure me against, is ideas that change the world. So it's a pretty tough brief, and to keep reminding the world about why they love Google. Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in agencies, and I was lucky enough to work on some great launches. But what's interesting is you know, when you're working and when your job is all about innovation, you realize how incredibly important innovation is, because innovation is what is effectively what propels the human race forward. Yeah, when we stop innovating, we stop moving. Yeah, and that's why I think that, you know, we are in a tough place, but, you know, this tension, this tough place that we're in, is if anything good can come out of it, it will be this whole notion that we will be able to become scrappy, and we will be able to draw on our limited resources and come out of this thing fighting, kind of like my first day at school. So I just want to show you a couple things that we're doing, just to give you context. I'm not trying to sell anything, but this is our social platform called Google+, and this is a campaign that I just launched a few days ago on Saturday in the UK.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. At first, the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face. And then the lover, sighing like furnace with a woeful ballad. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like the pard, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good capon lined, full of wise saws and modern instances. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose well saved, a world so wide.
And one more. This is something that we did to get kids in high school interested in science and physics and space, and it's called Space Lab, and it's all about schools and students being able to get them to send their homework, their experiments, and things that they wish they'd love to see play out in space, and send it up to the ISS. We did this alongside NASA, and this channel has been viewed over 50 million times in 6 months. So I'll just show you this one quickly.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff. But it's very pretty out here. Roger all.
So that's a bit of what I do. Enough about me, though. And now what I want to talk about is something that happened in the past. So if we go back a few years to about 1200 BC, now this is going to be slightly awkward because what you're going to hear is a bit of a history lesson from a creative director, which don't usually match up too well. So I may be sort of pleading for creative director immunity at times, and feel free to correct me if I got any of these dates wrong. But what I want to talk about is a time when Greece was doing pretty well a few years back. Yeah, the Mycenaean and Minoan cultures were flourishing. The highest types of civilizations, they were up there with Babylon, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. It was a fruitful time for Greek creativity. Minoan poetry had been discovered as far as Egypt, showing its real global and intrinsic value. So people from all over the world were loving this stuff. Yeah. Then something happened, you know. And there's a lot of speculation as to what happened. Was it a natural disaster? Were they conquered? The Dorians? Don't know. There's a lot of different theories on what happened. But right at the height of everything, the lights went out. Yeah, and Greece was almost erased from history for years. The state collapsed, which led to the fall of the Minoan and Mycenaean civilizations, and Greece was in a very dark place. For 400 years, we disappeared off the face of the earth, except for our resolve and pioneering spirit. Yeah, something that we have inbuilt. It's baked into us as a civilization. Something happened right after that. Well, a few hundred years after that, and what began to happen was that Greece slowly emerged from these dark days. City-states were being founded as centers of creativity and innovation. Athens innovated around government, where democracy was founded. Sparta in warfare, and other regions innovated around mathematics, philosophy, poetry, drama, science, everything. The combination of these centers of innovation is what became known as Greece. Proud city-states bonded together by a sense of shared identity in history. They called it Hellenism. Fast forward back to today, and what can history teach us? Again, we're in a dark place. Yeah, what can history teach us? How can we learn from this dark time and innovate? Create proud centers of innovation and ideas. All of these centers of innovation could create what the world could know as the new and modern Greece. The new Greece symbolizes the Greek spirit in the face of adversity. It's all about collaboration and working together for a greater good. We already have all the characteristics that lend themselves to creativity. It's in our spirit, it's in our soul. I know Peter's going to talk a lot about rebranding Greece and all that sort of stuff. And I just think that we need to tap into hundreds of years of what we call positive brand equity. We have it. We have more positive brand equity than we do negative brand equity. The negative thing is recent, yeah? We have so much more. It's like 99% to 1%. And we need to tell that story to the world. Greece is back, and it's better than ever, with a sense of pride and a touch of humility. And this is really important, because we can't go out there and start getting all defensive and saying, you're to blame and you're to blame. What's happened has happened, and we've got to come back out again, and we need to be humble, and we need to say we're back and we're doing interesting things. So what's the story we're going to tell? This is really interesting, because in advertising, whenever you win a new account or you start working with a new company, you immediately go to the heart of the organization, or you should go to the heart of the organization, and you talk to them about the internal communications. How are you going to get the people who work for that company to love that company and believe in any advertising message that you're going to try to get out there for everybody else to believe in? So we need to first work on our internal communications, yeah? And this image it cannot be what we are remembered for. It happened, but it cannot be what we are remembered for. We need a serious morale boost. You know, even though I live in London, I'm here a lot. And I feel it, and I'm here, and it's draining, and it's sad, and we need to change it. And when we change it amongst ourselves and we start feeling better, we'll be able to change the perception of us externally. We need a sense of purpose. And we need to feel that we can actually get out of this. We need to understand and love what it means to be Greek again. Our creativity, our love for the environment, of life and ideas. Internally, we need to get our house in order, and before we even begin to think about externally communicating anything. Then there's this whole perception versus reality, and you hear it all the time, that we're a bunch of lazy, corrupt tax evaders. Bullshit. The reality is that this is not the majority, and definitely not a representation of our generation. The truth is that we are some of the hardest working, most educated and creative people in the world. And again, it was mentioned earlier, but in the EU, where I have my stat from, I think I read it from The Guardian, we spend more on education than any other country in the EU, yeah? So we're not a dumb bunch of people, yeah? We have incredible art, music, history, culture, traditions. We're famous for our food, hospitality, generosity, philanthropy. This is where we begin. I typed in Greek designers and I started getting all this sort of stuff, incredible stuff that nobody seems to know about externally, about this creative contribution that we're making. Steve Jobs often talked about staying foolish and staying hungry. Yeah, we must never become complacent. And there may have been an element of complacency in what landed us in this situation. We must always retain our hunger. And I think that one of the things that I learned from growing up abroad and being the underdog and going, as I said, to school with a bow tie on, is you had to be a bit of a challenger, you had to be hungry, and you had to really want stuff because it wasn't really handed to you. It was a difficult time. We need to set up these centers of excellence that I talk about around technology. Again, every single one of my cousins in places like Crete and Patra seem to be hackers and programmers. They're all learning this stuff, and they've got these incredible skills that we need to harness. Mobile, applications, sustainable energy. I mean, when you look at our environment, we saw some of the landscape, and it said the best real estate in the world. Forget the beaches. I mean, we have the biggest sort of source of energy, natural energy, I think, in the world. Our art, our design, our architecture. Things that we're already incredibly talented in. We need to export our ideas along with our agriculture. And I think when we begin to feel comfortable exporting our ideas, we'll definitely be able to move on. I love this. This is a famous quote. Rome conquered Greece, but Greece conquered Rome. And why did Greece conquer Rome? So Rome took over physically, governmentally, and militarily, but it was the Greek religion, Greek philosophy, Greek science, and Greek thought that Rome adopted that helped make Rome become so great. They were so instilled in the Greeks that the Romans couldn't get rid of them. The Romans actually took them and built an empire on the back of them. So we have all these characteristics that lend themselves to true creativity. Yeah? So Rome conquered Greece physically, but in every other manner, Greece's ways overcame Rome. And finally, give me a place to stand and I will move the earth. And this is really important, yeah? So what are we going to do about this? What is our shared purpose? What is our shared belief? Once we unite around that same purpose, we can do anything, be it move the earth. We must stand together, working together for the better of all. We triumphed in the past and we'll emerge again. And this is my final thing. This is, I've got a little tiny stone house in the old town, Pagliapoli in Chania, and I love it. I mean, I love being there. I could sit there all day and do nothing else but just sit there, And I love Greece. Greece is where my family and I come from. It's where I was married. It's where I flew from the UK for both of my kids to be born in Athens, in Greece, so I can say that they're Greek. So I did the opposite, yeah? And it's where I look forward to coming back to every day. And it's the country that I feel, has made me everything that I am. So I kind of wanted to get up here, and I wanted to show some stats and share some ideas, but more importantly, I wanted to tell a bunch of people who aren't feeling that great right now that, what, I am, at least, everything that I am because of Greece. Thank you very much.
Ο Πίτερ Οικονομίδης έχει διατελέσει αντιπρόεδρος και διευθυντής Client Service παγκοσμίως της διαφημιστικής εταιρείας McCann Erickson Worldwide. Σαν επικεφαλής διεθνών πελατών στην BBWA Worldwide, έστησε και παρουσίασε την καμπάνια Think Different της Apple την ίδια χρονική περίοδο που ο Steve Jobs επέστρεψε στην εταιρεία. Αργότερα ίδρυσε την Felix BNI στην Αθήνα με πελάτες όπως Audi, Volkswagen, Heineken, Pepsi Cola, Διεθνής Ολυμπιακή Επιτροπή, Όμιλος Αντένα και Pernod Ricard. Επιπλέον είναι μέλος του Διοικητικού Συμβουλίου του Make-A-Wish Foundation International. Μεγάλα πάθη του είναι η ιστιοπλοεία και οι καταδύσεις, αλλά το μεγαλύτερο πάθος του είναι η στρατηγική επικοινωνία στον brand.
Με εντυπωσίασαν αυτά που είδα για τον κύριο Πίτερ Οικονομίδη. Με έχει εντυπωσιάσει ο ίδιος όμως, γιατί έχω δουλέψει μαζί του την περίοδο που ήμουν διευθύνων σύμβουλος στον Α. Τον υποδέχομαι με πολύ μεγάλη χαρά και πολύ μεγάλη τιμή.
Γεια σας. Έχω ένα... δεν θα τολμήσω να μιλάω ελληνικά, γιατί θα γελάζετε. Έχω παραγγείλει μια φορά σαλάτα μπατζούρια. Να μην σας πω άλλα, που είναι πολύ χειρότερα από αυτό. Ποιος τα ξέρει. Λοιπόν, Mr. Gusias, I recognize so much in what you were talking about. I've seen that passion before. And I've said about Greeks that χάσαμε το πάθος μας για μια πράτα. Αλλά το πάθος που είδα, το έχω ξαναδεί. Και είναι πολύ δυνατό πράγμα. I saw the same kind of passion recently. I was talking in Cambridge to 50 young Greek students, and they all want to come back here, and they feel they can't. And that hurts. That hurts them a lot. And I just want to pay tribute to what Yannis said earlier. This over here is the latest in a string of insults, frankly, to Greece. The latest in a string of happenings around the world that lead us to become a nation with the lowest self-esteem on the planet right now, which is exactly what we are. I saw some research the other day. Our image is not that bad. We're somewhere in the middle amongst 130 nations. In terms of self-esteem, we're lowest. This was a competition for kids, where an 11-year-old kid entered this competition with a proposal about how to get Greece out of Europe by creating some machines, you've seen it, creating some machines where you put euros in and drachma come out the other side. And if anybody keeps their euros, they get fined double and all sorts of stuff like this. And the kid got #1 prize. You know, it's bad news. It's bad news. And yet you go back not too long ago, 2004, to what was, in my mind, the finest story that's ever been told about Greece. And what it says at the bottom is that the ceremony captured the Greek joy of life, the soul, heart, and spirit of a newly transformed modern nation. It gave a vision for the future. It gave Greece a role in the modern world. That was only 7-8 years ago. Last year, Giscard d'Estaing said the following thing: Europe without Greece is like a child without a birth certificate. And a few weeks later, Focus comes out with that cover, Fraudsters in the Euro Family. And then in October, the French Minister for European Affairs makes the following statement: Greece is something we can live without. That is huge distance that we've made. Huge. Remarkable distance. And then, of course, you've got the media. And I'm going to read you a statement which I find quite remarkable from a fellow called Barnaby Phillips, who works for Al Jazeera. And I think he really puts it into perspective beautifully well. He was asked a question by a Greek: why do you only show what is bad in Greece? You would not film this in your own country. And he answers, what happens next in the small country on the edge of Europe affects all of us. So be it economic salvation or of disastrous default, we'll carry on reporting this story. Reporters based in the former war zones of the Balkans now rotate in and out of Greece in time for the latest strike or debt deadline. We bring tripods, light cases, and satellite phones. We look for defining images, riots in Syntagma Square. And the worst of us have got our cliches ready for our scripts. Greek tragedy, Greek drama. Never mind that for most local language skills don't extend beyond Kalimera. That won't stop the confidence-sounding analysis in the 24-hour news channels. And our appetite is voracious. The modern news machine is a hungry beast, and we have to keep on feeding it. Okay? So that carries on. And then we start seeing enikιάζεται signs in the middle of Kolonaki, and we see beggars on the streets because they're homeless, and suddenly this horror movie we've been watching for years is no longer a horror movie. It's our existential dilemma It's the catastrophe that we're suddenly facing. And we realize we have to do something about it. You can't wait. Nobody's going to drop anything out of the sky to save you. You can't beg. You can't buy your way out of this crisis. I don't think it's a good idea to sell your way out. And you can't cheat your way out anymore. That was an option in the past. You must create your way out of this crisis. You must. You have to. There's no other way forward. And then in comes one of the most popular phrases in the Greek language, then γίνεται. Second only to the other phrase, which starts with an M. We sometimes use them together. Δεν γίνεται ρε μαλάκα. Γίνεται. Γίνεται. Πρέπει να γίνεται. It absolutely has to γίνεται. Because if it doesn't γίνεται, we've got a huge problem. We've got a huge problem. Γίνεται. Absolutely γίνεται. The issue is that there's a huge disconnect. Huge disconnect. And I'm going to describe this disconnect to you. I think the disconnect, by the way, exists on many levels. There's a disconnect between who we are and who we think we are, between who we really are and who we want to be, between all sorts of things. But the biggest disconnect is probably between our institutions and people. And it's a very big disconnect. Just to talk through this, I want to describe a little bit of hard marketing over here. This is called the diffusion of innovations curve. Some may recognize that as a normal distribution curve. It's exactly what it is. Okay? 0% is over here, 100% there. So what this is saying is when you launch a new product or a new idea in society, it starts picking up, it then goes into rapid growth as it moves along. That's about 50% penetration of society. It starts tapering off until you reach 100%, okay? So that's how innovation moves through society. These compartments here, these are the innovators, which is 2.5%, early adopters, early majority, late majority, and the laggards. This is mainstream market in the middle, okay? I'm going to demonstrate this to you. The iPhone. The innovators will be the guys who are standing outside the store 2 days before the phone is released. They don't even know what it looks like, they don't know what it does, but they want it. And they're there. They're probably going to go without lunch for a week, but they're going to get that phone, okay? The next group of guys, a lot of us in this room would fall into this category. We said to ourselves, oh, okay, this has got the internet. This could be useful to me. I'll take the risk. I'll pay $500 for it. And if it works out for me, that's great. I'm willing to take the risk. So we go for it. We then go for dinner and we show off our phones, and everybody says, wow, what's that you got? And we start to influence these guys. Okay? We are the guys who sell to those guys. Very important. Okay? And all of a sudden, these guys start getting it, and the product starts climbing. It starts becoming very successful. Okay? The next group is, the neighbor's got one. I better get one. Okay? And the next group is like, what's an iPhone? Forget about them. Here's the problem. Innovation happens here. Our institutions are living there. And it's ironical. PASOK, for example, has been on a platform of change for the past 30 years. What change? What change? They have forgotten the need to change. And this is where innovation sits. There's a huge disconnect. And I'm afraid that causes huge problems. This disconnect, by the way, this photograph is remarkable. It was taken in 2009 with the death of Yorgopoulos. I'm sorry, my Greek. Bravo. And it could have been taken last year or this year. Look at that kid's face. That kid has got dreams. That kid is going to create his future. He will realize his dreams. The question is, will he realize them here? Will our institutions allow those dreams to be realized here? Or will he be forced to go elsewhere to do them? By the way, the bigger his dreams, the smarter he is, the easier it is for him to get up and go. We're at risk of a serious brain drain in this country. We could become the Mexico of Europe, the guys who supply the gardeners. Here's something which was developed, incubated in Athens. It's called Daily Secret. It's a remarkable little site where every day you get news in your mailbox about the secret things that are happening in the city that you do want to know about. This now exists in Athens. It's about to be launched in Thessaloniki, San Francisco, Shanghai, Istanbul, Vancouver, and it's about to be launched in Tel Aviv. And the guy who did this is a Greek guy. It was incubated in Athens. He's just been handed $1.85 million in investment from US investors. The headquarters are in New York. Guess where this kid's moving? That shouldn't be happening, but it's happening, and it's going to carry on happening. We cannot stop people from dreaming. That program that Chile is running, I think, is a perfect template for what we ought to be doing in Greece. The problem is that our institutions are way over on the other side. We don't have time to reform these institutions to get them into that kind of position. By the way, Chile is attracting Greek entrepreneurs. I know of at least 2 young entrepreneurs who've accepted their $40,000 grant, that's what you get, and they move down there, and they're going to work down there. You've just lost 2 potential geniuses, and work opportunities, and investment opportunities, and. In my talk in Thessaloniki, I spoke about Apple as being a possible model on which Greece can actually model itself a role. And you know, crazy as it seems, it's a wonderful case to look at in considering Greece. In 1997, Apple was irrelevant and bankrupt. The company was about to close. Today, it is the world's 2nd most valuable corporation, second only to General Electric. That took them 14 years to go from bankruptcy to 2nd most valuable in the world. The commercial, I was lucky enough to be part of the team that worked on this. The commercial that we ran at the time, which was called Think Different, says the following thing. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. That sounds like a Greek to me, 100%. Except this part's missing, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. We've got the first bit down perfectly. The second bit, we've been doing it for centuries. We've just forgotten how to do it. It's about time we get crazy again. Le Figaro picked up on something I'd said, and they said that I'm dreaming of Greece as the future Apple of the Mediterranean. Absolutely. Kathimerini, Greece is the apple of the Mediterranean. It's a crazy idea. In fact, it's an idea that is just about crazy enough to succeed. And I want to describe this idea to you and how I think we can make it work now. This, by the way, is not the way to move forward. This is what we've seen too much of in this country. Nice room to rent, good price. Special frappe, only €8. It is time to trade the dream of instant wealth for the dream of long-term possibility. Life is not about making money. It's about opening up possibility, opening up horizon. I've met a lot of young people since I've made my first speech back in November, some brilliant young people. And I want to describe a few of them to you. This guy's 27 years old. He's a one-star Michelin chef. No, he's not in New York. He's in Athens. Okay? This kid up here is 32 years old. He owns a site called yatsera.com. It's one of the finest design, architecture, fashion sites in the world. Highly regarded. He doesn't speak English. And he lives in Exarchia. This guy over here is a genius. He's at MIT, bioengineer, Andreas Mersinis, graduate of Moraitis School. Okay? He works with biomimicry. He has deconstructed a dog's nose to create a machine that sniffs out cancer before you've got it. Okay? Remarkable. This guy's a concert pianist. That is Merika Tranzu. She is being rated as being like the next big thing in fashion, and that's my favorite thing in the world. It's a skateboard with Greek sandals on it made out of leather, and it's absolutely unbelievable. It's got past, present, future inside it. A couple of other guys. This guy's 22 years old. He's made 44 movies, 2 a year. This guy's a German banker. He's moved to Greece in order to promote Greek wines in the US, and he's doing a great job at it. This is some of the finest food product in the world, a great ambassador for everything that comes out of the kitchen. I'm talking about Gea. Katsaounis, Nikos Katsaounis, who did the Prism project, which is quite remarkable. And the list goes on. The list goes on. All of these people are involved in what is called soft power. Soft power. Let me explain soft power to you. Soft power is all about attraction, about getting others to want what you are. Soft power is about being attractive and therefore attracting like a magnet. Soft power is not about pushing, it's about pulling. Take, for example, the US. The US has got incredible hard power. Nobody denies that. But it's also got the biggest soft power in the world. It's called Hollywood. It's stuff that people want, okay? And that gives the US incredible power. South Africa, the most incredible example of soft power was when Nelson Mandela wore the rugby jersey of the Springbok team. I mean, it just united the nation in a second. Mr. Ambassador, you'll know about that. Remarkable event in South African history. Bilbao, a dirty industrial town transformed completely by art. That's soft power. El Bulli in Spain. You need to book a year in advance to get there. What that does for cuisine, Spanish cuisine, I see somebody smiling, is huge. Fashion, Italy. And when you don't have soft power, you create it. Look at what Dubai's done. They build the world's first 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-star hotel, and they have a tennis match at the top. This over here is Abu Dhabi, where they're building a new Guggenheim Museum. And in Qatar, they're actually importing education. Georgetown University is there, Texas A&M is opening soon, MIT, and a whole bunch of others. A nation's soft power potential is a function of the strength, universality, and attractiveness of its culture and values. Wow. Who's got more of that? We've got it all. We've got so much soft power potential. We need to harness it. However, when you look at our outdated institutions, this comes from the World Bank, by the way, a site which lists countries in terms of the ease of doing business. We are listed number 100, just above Yemen and just below Papua New Guinea. 135th in terms of starting a business. Austria is just above us, Brunei is just behind us. 77th in terms of getting electricity. Marshall Islands ahead of us, Tanzania behind us. 155th in terms of protecting investors. Togo ahead of us, Marshall Islands behind us. Half of these countries, I've only seen them at Olympic opening ceremonies. I don't know where they are. Morocco, number 90 in terms of enforcing contracts. Morocco is just ahead of us, Armenia is just behind us. And in terms of resolving bankruptcy, we're number 57, with Namibia ahead of us, St. Lucia just behind us. That is not exactly the world's most friendly place to do business. And there's the problem. Institutions are out there, innovators are here. There's a concept called the Free Create Zone, which I'd like to very quickly run you through. The Free Create Zone is a limited zone. Think of a Dubai free trade zone, where within that zone, if you qualify to operate within there, the regime is different, okay? The structures are different. And the objective is within that key zone to create an environment which is number one on every score, the world's most attractive destination for innovation, entrepreneurship, investment. Okay? What is this designed to do? To block the brain drain, to attract investment, to inspire innovators and the nation, and to build image. Because if all of a sudden Greece has got this coolest creative zone on the planet, and you talk about that, what happens to the image of Greece? It's a place that enables, empowers, encourages, and inspires creativity. I want to give you some flavor of it. To me, it should be located on the sea. It's not a New York wannabe. We're selling a Greek, Mediterranean, Aegean lifestyle. Okay? Best place I can possibly think of is the old airport, which is sitting there for how many years now? Take the old airport and create a zone out of it where things can happen. Unused aircraft hangars would be the office concept. And within those, showcase architecture to really make it something worth talking about, that the whole world will want to talk about. Rent a cube collaborative workspaces inside there, where kids rent cubes and go and work on ideas. It's a microcosm of the future. We cannot change our institutions overnight. We can create an incubator of what the future might look like. And that would be my proposal in order to really clear up the road for entrepreneurship and innovation in Greece. Closing, we've certainly got stormy times. We're at a defining moment in our history, but I keep reminding myself that history is a series of little dots. They just go on and on and on. And at some point we'll look back on this dot, and we have to make sure that we are in good shape when we look back on this dot. What we do with this dot determines how we will be as we move forward. We have a long history with a glorious past, and we have a future that rests entirely in our hands. This is from a blog I wrote about 2 years ago. It says, "We are Greeks. We have the power to imagine, and now it is time to imagine our future." In closing, I want to congratulate the organizers of Ellinas.com. It's great. It's exactly what we need. I'm a great believer in getting all of Hellenism around the world together, which is exactly, I know, what you're thinking of, Christos, and you're doing, and that's brilliant. And it's been a great honor to speak at an event with speakers such as George Bezos and many others, and to hear, Yanis, you and your passion. I really have appreciated this a lot. Thank you very much indeed.
Η Νάντια Χαραλάμπου έχει κάνει προπτυχιακές σπουδές στη θεατρική ερμηνεία και την πολιτιστική διαχείριση στα μίντια και την επικοινωνία, καθώς και μεταπτυχιακές στην πολιτιστική διαχείριση, στην επαγγελματική επικοινωνία και την πολιτιστική διεύθυνση. Λόγω της ενεργούς συμμετοχής της στην ελληνική κοινότητα του Queensland και της επαγγελματικής εμπειρίας της στην εταιρική επικοινωνία στα πλαίσια της κυβέρνησης της πολιτείας, προσκλήθηκε να εκπροσωπήσει την Αυστραλία στο πολιτιστικό και γλωσσικό πρόγραμμα του Ελληνικού Υπουργείου Εξωτερικών. Υπήρξε θελόντρια σε πλήθος φεστιβάλ και δρόμενα και εργάστηκε με παιδιά σε διάφορα πολιτιστικά ιδρύματα. Η κυρία Χαραλάμπου εκτιμά την πολιτισμική πολυμορφία και έχει ταξιδέψει σχεδόν παντού.
Παρακαλώ την κυρία Νάντια Χαραλάμπου, της οποίας το χαμόγελο μας έχει αφοπλίσει όλους από χθες, να έρθει στο βήμα. Παρακαλώ.
Kalispera, Ellinas. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak to you today at this very special and significant event where we, Greeks from across the globe, unite in the capital city of our country to inspire and uplift our compatriots at this particularly challenging time in our history. It's an absolute pleasure and honour for me to be here, particularly speaking amongst some of our country's greatest. To the founder of Ellinas.com, Christos Barlas, I congratulate you and your team for initiating such an innovative idea. You have designed spaces in both the virtual and real environments for Greeks from around the world to come together and share their vision for Greece's future. It's a remarkable initiative which in itself is a reflection of the unyielding Greek spirit. It is indeed a privilege for me to be a part of the proceedings. I am a very proud Greek Australian woman. Oh, I have the nose and the name to prove it, quite obviously. My ancestry lies here. My heart belongs here. I feel very much at home here. However, I must confess from the outset that I do not fully understand the structural inefficiencies of the political, education or economic system. I am not an economist, I'm not an anthropologist, a business strategist or a consumer analyst. I am an Australian whose personal and professional experiences lie in the arts and cultural sector. but whose origins hail from this great nation, yours, Greece. The purpose of my presentation today, entitled Greece, A Greek Australian's Perspective, is twofold. Firstly, I would like to share my personal experiences of Greece, integrating comments from our renowned Australian academic, John Carroll. Secondly, I will discuss my vision for Greece's future. My aim is to assure all Greeks that from a Greek Australian's perspective, great things will always be said of Greece. In the history of the world, as some of our other speakers have alluded to, nearly all great nation states experience turmoil of some sort at some stage. Indeed, this great nation has had to endure several episodes of hardship during its long, rich history. The spirit of its people, though, we, the Greeks, have always prevailed. We have emerged out of every period of adversity stronger and more confident. As in the past, we, the custodians of our nation's spirit, will overcome the present-day difficulties we face. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Today, I wish to share my confidence for the Greeks in Greece. For where there is confidence, there is a future. When Christos kindly asked me to speak at today's event, I was forced to reflect upon my history. To contextualise my relationship with Greece, I'd like to offer a brief chronological summary of my experiences with the country. Please, my intention is not to provide a travelogue, but rather to highlight my extremely positive experiences here in Greece that I wish to thank you, the people of Greece, for providing me with, particularly my cousins who are sitting in the audience today, Vaso, Emi, Ria and George. In 2004, I made my first trip to Athens. Why then? I was studying a double degree at the time and working at an inner city law firm in Brisbane, Australia. And I developed an addiction I did not know how to manage. It began consuming me. Like love, it was entirely intoxicating. I read books about it, I spoke to people who found themselves in similar situations and spent money on quick fixes trying to overcome it. The truth of the matter was this, though. There was only one city in the entire world who could offer a cure. And I wonder which city that would have been. Yours, Athens. And it did. At 20, I developed an addiction to Athens. To Athenians, past and present, thank you for saving me. In his book, Greek Pilgrimage, In Search of the Foundations of the West, Professor of Sociology, John Carroll, at Australia's La Trobe University, writes that we who are born in the West are all Greeks, that here lie our roots. As a result of this strong conviction, Carroll set out on his own Greek pilgrimage. He says that the ancient Greeks invite us to think about who we are, the best ways to organise ourselves, to build institutions, to make cities beautiful. He reminds us that the ancient Greeks bequeathed to the West science and philosophy, drama and sport, engagement with nature, and many other things that grace the modern world. Being a proud and patriotic Greek woman who lives in a Western culture, I could not help but agree wholeheartedly with Carroll's statements. They were profound, bold, and based on empirical evidence. I knew my roots lay in Greece, thus the development of my addiction, but I did not consider that perhaps the whole of the West's might. Now, if this is not the source of enduring pride for Greeks, what will be? And for me, it is quite ironic that a renowned Australian academic wrote so convincingly about the pivotal role of ancient Greece. I was fortunate enough to have met Professor John Carroll in Brisbane at the Brisbane Writers' Festival just months ago, and personally thanked him for acknowledging Greece's place in world history. It was in the late 1940s, after the Second World War, when my four forebearers migrated to Australia from Greece. At this time, grand schemes for population growth were well underway in Australia, and the immigration net was cast to Europe, which in itself was suffering the ravages of war. Australia looked to be a promising country for my four grandparents. From day one of their arrival, they endured cultural, social, financial and language hardships, but to their credit, they overcame them. Through adversity, they triumphed, building a happy and healthy life for themselves and their families. And this is not an isolated case. You know, from the speakers we've heard today, this is a similar situation. And to this day, my mother, father, brother, aunts, aunties and cousins are eternally grateful for the lives our ancestors established for us. I then started my primary school education in 1990. The Australian school syllabus instructs that Greek history is taught in the education system. I remember learning about the Olympic Games and the Acropolis. The Games, the most successful global celebration in the world, were born here in Greece. As Carol reminds us, today, global institutions such as the United Nations look at astonishment and envy at the international goodwill that the Olympic Games manage to inspire every 4 years. It was the Greeks who more than 2,500 years ago invented this platform where human excellence, virtuosity of performance is celebrated. It was the Greeks who built the Acropolis, this majestic, timeless temple that presides over Athens and its democracy. Now, the Acropolis also presents another example of where the ancient Greeks created the ideal of excellence. It reminds the citizens below, by its shining example, to be artful in their rhetoric, balanced in their deliberations, and wise in their decisions. The Olympics and the Acropolis. Continents away, and at the age of 10, I have already learned of two major contributions Greece has made to the world. In high school, I further developed my knowledge of Greece's gifts to society. In history, I was taught Greek mythology. In speech and drama, I learned the great Greek tragedies. In English, I learned Greek roots. In maths, I mastered the teachings of Pythagoras. In science, I learned of Archimedes. In music, I listened to the bouzouki. And in religion, I was educated on the origins, principles, practices, and philosophies of orthodoxy. My high school education under the Australian public sector system afforded me more opportunities to learn about Greece's gifts to the world. At university, I studied the creative industries. In my strategic speech classes, I was taught and examined on Aristotle's art of rhetoric, his three proofs, ethos, pathos, and logos. Here I learned the persuasive communication techniques developed in ancient Greece and used today in contemporary society. In my communication classes, I studied the dialogues of Socrates and Plato. In my spare time, I wrote for a Greek newspaper based in Melbourne, Neos Cosmos. I sang in Australia's own Greek Idol. On weekends, I would go to dinner parties, providing my signature, very simple dish of a Greek salad filled with my favourite full-cream Greek feta. I worked at Brisbane's annual Greek festival, the Panagiri, making moussaka and baking baklava. I frequented the theatre, concert halls and cinemas with family and friends, where I saw a moving production on the life of Maria Callas, and I witnessed Nana Mouskouri singing Up Live. I also attended the various Greek film festivals that came to town, and joined the Senior Youth Association, and must have sampled every Greek taverna in Brisbane. Throughout my university life, without even realising it, I was fully immersing myself in all things Greek. I joined the full-time workforce after my studies, and it was at this time that I developed my yearning to travel. It was an exciting time for me and in Greece's history. It was the time of the 2004 Athens Olympic Games, and we've seen beautiful images of those games today. I was in Athens at the same time as 10,000 of the world's greatest athletes. This city was alive. Greece was on the world stage, and my God, it made me so proud. Learning about these games in primary school and then being here for them in my adult life gave me an overwhelming sense of pride. And so my addiction began. In 2008, I was fortunate enough to have returned to Athens with the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who hosted a program for Greeks of the diaspora. Here, 120 Greeks from the diaspora, from 4 continents, America, South Africa, New Zealand and Australia, were given the opportunity to sample Greece's best. We were given Greek language lessons and taught traditional Greek dancing. We learnt Greek songs, studied Greek plays, explored the museums, galleries and cultural centres. We visited the port of Piraeus. We went sightseeing to Sunion, Delphi, Nafplio and Epidavros. We travelled to Thessaloniki, attended lectures by academics and prominent legal figures, went to Parliament House and were briefed on national matters by representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Finally, we enjoyed morning tea with President Carlos Papoulias. It was truly the experience of a lifetime and one that inspired, my next return trip to Greece. In 2009 and 2010, I came again. My addiction continued and the desire to satisfy it would not diminish. Just as John Carroll did his Greek pilgrimage, I decided to do mine. I ventured through Athens and then popped on a plane to step foot on the island of Rhodos, particularly Asclepio, Manolithos and Paradisi. There's certainly something to be said about standing on the same ground upon which your ancestors stood. It was an extraordinary journey that I feel very fortunate to have taken. Today, in 2012, I'm here for the 5th time on the very generous invitation from Elinas.com. When I landed in Athens just a couple of days ago, something remarkable happened. The minute I hit the tarmac, and admittedly this happens every time, and only in Athens, there was this rapturous applause by everyone on the plane. And I just think it's phenomenal that even in the toughest of economic times, Greeks are happy to be home. Greeks have a certain spirit about them. And I say, let this spirit carry us through this particularly challenging time in our history. For me, there is, and there always will be, something magical and enchanting about Greece. What strikes me is the vitality of the ancient sites. It's as if they haven't changed over the millennia. What amazes me is the warmth, energy, passion and enthusiasm of its people. You know, it's as if you've mastered the art of living, simply but fully. Greece completely overwhelms me. Its people and its landscape. There is a beauty and a culture that adorn this country. It's so impressive. It's so addictive. I cannot help but keep coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, you have something very precious here in Greece. My vision for Greece is that all people who live in and visit this country hold only fond views and memories of it, as I do, as I always have, and as I always will, as my family do, as my friends do, as our friend Professor John Carroll does. Greece has offered so much to the world. We have earned a very special place in it. Let us not forget that. Let us not forget who we are and what we're capable of. Greece will continue to contribute great things to society. It's for us, now, at this time of difficulty, to draw together and to immerse ourselves in what it means to be Greek, to recall the remarkable achievements of our ancestors, and to do what is expected of us, what is in our DNA, and that is to take this nation forward. If we fail, how will we compare to our ancestors? And how will Greeks of future generations judge us? Failure is not a word in the Greek lexicon. Please remember this, you are not alone. We Greeks live in every corner of this planet. We are drawn to our country, to where our ancestry lies. No matter where we are, As Andy mentioned, we are family. We are ready to support you with the means that we have available to us, and we will not fail you. I believe that the answer lies in our people. So let us now, the people of Greece, deliver the concepts that we have spoken about today. I hope that through sharing my personal association with Greece and vision for Greece, that I have offered assurance and inspiration to you. Greece is a subject of study in the Australian education system, from my experience from primary through to secondary, right up to and including my tertiary education. In Greece, we have a history steeped in trials, tribulations, and successes. We have given the world more than most, and without a doubt, we will continue to contribute amazing things. Greeks from the diaspora are here today, signalling a unique strength of cohesion with a burning desire to move forward in one unified direction. Today, we are amongst some of the greatest minds in our country. This in itself is the first step forward towards raising optimism and inspiration in our people. We have provided so much to the world, and through our actions, we will continue to provide great things to the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my wish to meet with you again at about this time next year for the second Elinas.com conference. Christo, take notes. Where we can come together and reflect on the confidence that we instilled, the change we created, and the accomplishments we achieved. Thank you so much again for this opportunity to be here with you. Congratulations to Christos, and let's start going, Greece. Ευχαριστώ πολύ. Thank you.
Ευχαριστίες θερμές που ήσασταν εδώ στο επανειδήν του χρόνου, στο δεύτερο συνέδριο του Έλληνες.com. Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.